Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the nutrients and their metabolism. Macronutrients: carbohydrates, fatty acids, and proteins. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are manufactured by plants and are a major source of energy in the diet, comprising around half the total calories. Carbohydrates are composed by carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a ratio of COH2. Important dietary carbohydrates can be categorized as monosaccharides, disaccharides, and oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides.
What the heck is going on, guys? Welcome to your 7th biology tutorial, and in this video I want to talk to you guys about carbohydrates. But before I get into that, I want to go ahead and mention a few things about carbon, because believe it or not, they kind of tie in together really closely. And I guess before I even start talking about the educational stuff, I just want to say I apologize if I sound kind of nasally right now, but unfortunately I'm allergic to just about everything on Earth. So, if I sound kind of weird, sorry, but you'll get over it. So basically, your body absolutely loves carbon. And this is supposed to be a heart right here. I know it kind of looks kind of weird, like a loaf of bread or a kidney bean. But this is supposed to be heart, and that means that your body loves carbon. Why is that? Well, your body uses carbon and it turns it into a bunch of different stuff that you need to live, like carbohydrates and proteins and nucleic acids and lipids. And actually, what I want to do is I want to make a separate video for each one of those things, because each of those compounds is incredibly important in your body, so they deserve their own video. But for right now, we're just going to be talking about carbohydrates. And if you're wondering, you know what, where do I even get carbon from if I love it so much and I need it? Well, you actually get carbon from food. There's a bunch of carbon in food, and whenever you eat it, your body, breaks it apart, uses the carbon for, turns it into a bunch of different stuff. Plants, however, they don't eat food, they make their own food, but we'll talk about more of those differences later on. For now, just remember that your body loves carbon, and it turns carbon into different things that your body needs, starting with carbohydrates. So let's go ahead and talk about that. C-A-R-B-O-H-Y. Carbohydrates. So carbohydrates, kind of a tongue twister, is a compound that consists of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now, the typical formula for this is CH2O, which basically means that you have one carbon, two hydrogens, and one oxygen. However, this formula can be multiplied, and by multiplied I mean that carbohydrates usually have the ratio 1 to 1, but you can have something like C6H12O6. So even though their formula is technically different, the ratio is the same: 1 to 2 to 1, 6 to 12 to 6. It's basically all the same thing. So now that we know what carbohydrates kind of, the chemical formula at least, you're wondering, why the heck does your body even need carbohydrates? Because, you know what, Bucky? I read the Atkins diet, and he said that carbohydrates are bad and make you fat. Well, that is true if you have a ton of carbohydrates in your body, but your body needs at least a few carbohydrates just to function. To do what kind of stuff? Well, living things, including your body, they actually break down carbohydrates for energy. And your body, uses a bunch of different things for energy, but the reason that it loves carbohydrates so much is because it can get energy from them really quickly. Now, the only downfall of this is the energy from carbohydrates. It doesn't last very long, and that's why your body needs to eat every few hours to get those carbs. It burns them off so it can get a quick source of energy, but the energy doesn't last that long. So that's why your body needs to store energy in other things other than carbohydrates, but we're going to be talking about that later. Now, just some random information, just because this is bugging me right here. This, I said, is the basic formula for a carbohydrate, a ratio of 1 carbon to 2 hydrogen to 1 oxygen. However, this right here is actually a special carbohydrate called glucose. It's actually a sugar, and sugars are carbohydrates, believe it or not. Fun fact. Going to be talking about that later. But for right now, I just wanted to give you guys that little random bit of information because this was bugging me right down there. For this tutorial, all you have to remember is that the formula for a carbohydrate is typically with a ratio 1 carbon, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen, and your body needs carbohydrates because they can break them down and use them for a quick source of energy. However, the energy from carbohydrates doesn't last very long, and therefore your body needs to store energy in other things, and we're going to be talking about that later on. So for now, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. What?
Hormonal control of blood sugar. In the body, blood glucose must be maintained at a minimum level, 70 to 100 milligrams per 100 milliliters, to provide fuel for the brain, central nervous system, and other obligate consumers of glucose. If blood glucose is chronically higher than this range, damage to cells and systems takes place, as it does in patients with diabetes. Glucose homeostasis, aka equilibrium, is controlled in the fed and fasted states through actions of hormones that store, release, or oxidize glucose as needed. In the fed state, insulin is the principal anabolic hormone and is responsible for fuel storage and use. It is produced by the beta cells of the islets of Langerhans in the pancreas and released into the bloodstream in response to the postprandial increase in blood glucose. Insulin release can also be stimulated, although to a lesser extent, by the ingestion of protein or infusion of amino acids or ketone bodies. Insulin release is also stimulated by gastrointestinal hormones, vagus nerve activity, and certain drugs, e.g., glucotrol, an oral hypoglycemic agent. Insulin binds to receptors on muscle and adipose cells and facilitates glucose entry through specialized GLUT4 transporters. In the liver, insulin facilitates glucose oxidation and glycogen synthesis. If food intake is excessive, insulin also facilitates fatty acid synthesis and storage in the adipose cells, thereby reducing the glucose concentration in the bloodstream. Fats and lipids. Fats and lipids constitute approximately 34% of the energy in the human diet. Because fat is energy rich and provides 9 kilocalories per gram of energy, humans are able to obtain adequate energy with a reasonable daily consumption of fat-containing foods. Dietary fat is stored in adipose, or fat cells, located in depots of the human frame. The ability to store and use large amounts of fat enables humans to survive without food for weeks and sometimes months. Essentials fatty acid deficiency. The consequences of reduced availability of omega-3 fatty acids are just now beginning to be understood. The human brain, central nervous system, and membranes throughout the body require omega-3 fatty acids, especially eicosapentaenoic acid and docosahexaenoic acid, for optimum function. Connor et al. Proposed that greater availability of long-chain omega-3 fatty acid allowed humans to develop their complex brain and neural system. An animal deficient in omega-3 fatty acids grows and reproduces normally, but it is at risk for developing learning problems, impaired vision, and polydipsia. The impact of omega-3 fatty acids on cardiovascular disease, arthritis, cancer, and other chronic diseases, as well as on altered immune and mental states, including attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression, is under intense study. The impact of omega-3 fatty acids on cardiovascular disease, arthritis, cancer, and other chronic diseases, as well as on altered immune and mental states, including attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression, is under intense study. Abnormal omega-6 omega-3 ratios have been linked to changes in vascular membrane lipid composition and increased incidence of atherosclerosis and inflammatory disorders. Deficiencies of omega-6 essential fatty acids also have clinical implications, including growth retardation, skin lesions, reproductive failure, and fatty liver and polydipsia. Fat-free diets may lead to essential fatty acid deficiencies and eventually death if the missing nutrient is not provided.
What the heck is going on, guys? Welcome to your 14th biology tutorial, and in this tutorial I want to talk to you guys about something called lipids. Now, you may be familiar with lipids because they are actually the fat in your body. So hopefully you aren't too familiar with them, but that's what they are, and I'll tell you guys how molecules become fat in your body in a second, because hopefully you can burn the energy before it gets to that state. But before, I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about lipids. So lipids are basically large molecules relative to, every other molecule in your body. However, they have a lot of energy inside them. So that can be a good thing and a bad thing because, if you ever are, starving and you aren't around a source of food, then your body can start to burn that fat and use that energy. However, it can be a bad thing because, if you're just, sitting at home eating a bunch of double cheeseburgers from McDonald's, then those lipids build up in your body and you never end up using that energy. You just, become fat, basically. And that's actually why they can pack so many calories into a double cheeseburger. So let me go ahead and draw a picture of a delicious double cheeseburger right here. So you may be thinking, and this is what some people think sometimes, that, oh my god, I ate one double cheeseburger and there are 2,000 calories in that. And I'm like, dude, that's not a bad thing. How many grapes would you have to eat to get 2,000 calories? 2,000 calories worth of energy in your body. So, again, like I said, lipids, large molecules, but they can pack a bunch of energy into a small space. That's why a double cheeseburger can have so many calories and it can still be, not that big relative to fruit or something like that. But enough about just eating cheeseburgers and fats and stuff. Let's go ahead and learn something scientific. So lipids, might as well go. Lipids are what we call hydrophobic. And if you take apart this, hydro means water, and phobic, if you have a phobia of something, it means you're afraid of it. So it basically means that lipids don't like water, or they don't mix good with water. And oil is actually a liquid lipid, and a solid one would be something like butter. And that's why if you ever have like a vegetable oil, or if you see an oil spill on TV, it doesn't mix in with the water. It either sits on top of it, or if you have butter and you try to, I don't know, mix it with oil, or if you ever pour vegetable oil in water, like maybe you're making cookies or something, they aren't going to mix together like if you were making, I don't know, like sugar in water or something. And that's because lipids are fats that are hydrophobic, doesn't get along well with water. Now, scientifically, again, I'm obviously hungry if I'm talking about cheeseburgers and cookies and stuff, but let's go ahead and talk about three types of lipids. And three different types of lipids. I'm going to go ahead and start with phospholipids. Now, phospholipids, when I say three major types of lipids, I mean the three types of lipids or how they're used in your bodies. So phospholipids are actually a type of lipid that are used in the cell membrane. Now, I know we didn't talk about the cell yet, but the membrane, just think of it like the skin of the cell, the outer covering of the cell. So phospholipids are a type of useful lipids, a lot more useful than the fat on your body, and they're used on the skin of the cell. Now, another type of lipids is steroids. Yes, believe it or not, I'm not making this up. Steroids are a type of lipid. Now, steroids, you may be familiar with them, may not be, but they're actually used to create hormones, and that's why if if you've seen a bodybuilder or something taking steroids, it's because they want a lot of testosterone, or in a female, they create a lot of estrogen, and actually cholesterol is actually a steroid molecule, and believe it or not, steroids, or excuse me, oh, I have to swallow. Steroids are actually found in the membrane of a cell too, just not as many as phospholipids, because pretty much the whole thing is phospholipids, but then you have a few things scattered in, but we'll talk about that more when we talk about the parts of the cell. And again, the reason that they're in your body is because, just like many things in your body, it's useful. But just like anything else, too much can be a bad thing. And that's why if you have too much cholesterol in your body, then it can go ahead and get clogged in your bloodstream. And, all that cholesterol gets clogged up. And whenever this happens, you, of course, have a heart attack or a stroke or something like that. So pretty much everything in biology, every food you eat, every drug that you take can be good if used in the right kind of ways. But just like, anything else, too much is a bad thing. Cholesterol is no exception. But I'm done giving life advice. Let's go ahead and move on to something a little more educational. The last type of lipid that I want to talk to you guys about, and that's triglyceride. Definitely the most complicated one to see. So, I guess I might as well say this. Your liver tries to store all the glucose, and remember that, the thing that cells use for energy, it tries to store it as glycogen. So remember we said that the cells in your body use as much glucose as they can, and what they don't use they store in glycogen. There's nothing wrong with that, because that way you don't have to eat all the time. Pretty cool. But whatever is left over, and whenever they can't store any more glycogen, they create something called triglycerides. Now, triglycerides are not very good, because those are pretty much the fat that, here's what happens. Your body tries to use the glucose, and then it stores it as glycogen, and whenever it can't, it makes triglycerides. And triglycerides go through your bloodstream. Here's a little bloodstream. That's a pretty good looking bloodstream. And then they're deposited into your adipose tissue. Now, your adipose tissue is basically the fat that you see on your body. So basically, whenever your body can't use glucose, it stores it in glycogen. When your body's done making glycogen, it makes triglycerides, which are the fat that travels through your bloodstream into a special tissue on your body. So that way, the more tissue you have, the fatter you are. And that's kind of why you can't eat too much, because if you eat too much, your body doesn't need all the energy, and that's how it stores it in something, a lipid, that becomes fat. So remember, phospholipids, very useful, especially when making your cell membranes. Steroids, pretty useful, but if you have too much cholesterol, they can cause heart attacks and strokes. Triglycerides, you really don't want any of those unless you're going to, be surviving in the wilderness for a long amount of time, because those are the things that make you more or less fat. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. And, well, that's why you lose fat whenever you work out, because first, you burn all the glucose in your body, and then your body tries to convert the glycogen to glucose, and then when it's done burning that, it converts these triglycerides to glucose, and then it uses that for energy. So again, it's good to have, but too much, you're going to be fat. So there is my very, very messy tutorial on lipids. Next time I promise I'll use more slides. But
Now, amino acids and protein. Whereas plant structures are primarily composed of carbohydrates, the body structure of humans and animals is built on protein. Proteins differ molecularly from carbohydrates and lipids in that they contain nitrogen. Primary roles for proteins in the body include structural proteins, enzymes, hormones, transport, and immunoproteins. Proteins are comprised of amino acids linked by peptide bonds. The sequence of the amino acids determines the ultimate structure and function of the protein, and is determined by the genetic code stored in the cell nucleus and deoxyribonucleic acid. Essential amino acids. Synthesis of proteins requires the presence of all necessary amino acids during the process. Chemically, amino acids are carboxylic acids with an amino group attached to the alpha carbon. All amino acids have this same general structure. It is the side chain also attached to the alpha carbon, the R group, which dictates the identity and function of each amino acid. Homeostatic regulations control the concentration of specific amino acids in the amino acid pool and the rate at which muscle and plasma proteins are synthesized and broken down. Body protein synthesis and breakdown or turnover is regulated. Nutrient balance studies have demonstrated that in healthy individuals, the amount of protein taken in is exactly balanced by protein usage for body maintenance and excreted in feces, in urine, and from skin, resulting in a zero protein balance.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your 11th biology tutorial, and in this video we're going to be talking about proteins. Good enough. I really need to take a class in handwriting, but nonetheless we're going to be talking about proteins, and let's go ahead and start off by talking about why do you even need proteins in your body. And that's actually, proteins are one of the most diverse things in your body, and you need them for a whole bunch of different things, and I can't even come close to explaining all of them, but some of the major things is they provide structure in all of your cells. They carry important molecules all around your body to different cells, and let's see, they also use something called an enzyme, and we'll talk more about enzymes later, but they pretty much speed up chemical reactions so your body isn't waiting around for crap to happen randomly. So basically, proteins do a whole bunch of different crap, and the building blocks of proteins are called amino acids. Now, they're called the building blocks because, well, that's what proteins are essentially made of, but there's kind of a mid-process in between. So, say that this was an amino acid. I don't really think inside your body that they look like a circle with an A in it, but whenever you have a bunch of amino acids, A, they can go ahead and string together, and once a bunch of amino acids are strung together, they can form something called a polypeptide chain. So, polypeptide chain. So that's what we have right here, and a fun little fact is that these amino acids are actually linked together by the process of dehydration synthesis, and we remember that from the last tutorial. So basically, a bunch of amino acids link together and form a polypeptide chain, and once you have a bunch of polypeptide chains, they can come together and form proteins. So I probably shouldn't have drew so many arrows, but let me go ahead and make this a little bit simple. Amino acids form polypeptide chains. I'll add a Z, gangsta. And polypeptide chains can come together and form proteins. And, well, that's pretty much all you need to know for right now. And I might want to get a new slide out. And another cool thing is that, let me go ahead and talk about some different types of proteins in your body. So I'll go ahead and talk about some of the most common ones right now because, again, like I said, proteins do a crap load of different stuff, and it's going to take me forever if I try to explain each one. But one of the most, actually the most abundant protein in humans is called collagen. You may have heard of it before. Now, collagen is basically the tissues that, it's kind of like between your muscle and your bones, and it plays a big role in like ligaments and tendons and stuff. It's pretty much to, how can I say this, provide support, I guess. Provide support in your body. And another big one is hemoglobin. And if you hear my dog crying, then that's me, not my dog. So hemoglobin is another big important protein in your body, and it's found in your red blood cells. So That kind of looks like a red blood cell, actually. And its job is actually to carry oxygen all around your body. So there's a protein inside here, and whenever you have some oxygen that needs to be delivered to different places in your body, you use hemoglobin, and it attaches onto that oxygen and delivers it to wherever your body needs it. So to recap one last time, proteins do a bunch of different crap in your body, a bunch of important stuff, and they're basically made from something called amino acids, which join together through dehydration synthesis to form polypeptide chains, and once you have enough of these chains, you can form a protein. Now, proteins, like I said, do a bunch of different crap, including providing support, which is the main job of them in your body. Collagen is the most abundant protein in your body. And also, hemoglobin is another famous one, I guess. You probably hear that a lot. And its job is pretty much to take oxygen and deliver it to different places on your body. So proteins, unlike other things, have a very diverse range of jobs, unlike, just, I don't know, something else. So I'm going to shut up. That's enough about proteins. You guys are probably sick of it. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.